Hello, everybody. 12:53 in the day. It is right now. We are live. This is a stream. We're going to talk some more stuff about the DCEU in a couple of seconds. I got some stuff for you guys, and then we can chat on any topic you want. Remember, the chat section is right over here. You can leave your comments in the chat section right here. Comments in the chat section. Those of you who want to join me in the Hangout, feel free to join me in the Hangout as well. And we're going to talk some DCEU stuff. You know, it's very interesting. I'll ask you this question, real simple question. The question is, who is your greatest enemy? Let me see if you guys know who that would be. Really interesting, isn't it? I'm going to read from Psalms 120. As you know, I take off my glasses to read, which is something weird. But I'm going to read Psalms 120, and then we'll go on. Psalms 120 kind of answers the question. Check it out. In my distress, I cried unto the Lord, and he heard me. Deliver my soul, O Lord, from lying lips and from a deceitful tongue. What shall be given to you? What shall be done to you, you false tongue? Sharp arrows of the mighty with coals of juniper. Woe is me that I sojourn in Meshach, and I dwell in the tents of Kedar. My soul has long dwelt with him that hateth peace. I'm for peace. But when I speak, they are for war. Who is this person's enemy? And the answer is very simple. It is himself. He is influenced sometimes by the spirit of the people around him, and he's afraid that he would give in to that spirit. Your greatest enemy is actually you. You are your greatest enemy. It's one of the weirdest things. Your greatest friend and your greatest enemy. Well, not really your greatest friend. God is your greatest friend. But you are your worst enemy. Nope. Don't try to blame anybody outside. Everything happens up in the mind here. Your thoughts and how you process those thoughts. And that's what determines which direction you go. If you ever bow down or stay back, it's because you actually made that decision to do so. So that's why these qualities are so important. And I just wanted to share that from that scripture before I move on. I move on to show you the metaphorical as well as the metaphysical similarities between our heroes in the DCEU and our villains and the two sides of yourself. Let's get into it. So I'm just going to go here and let me get to screen share for a minute. And remember, you can always chat in the chat section, which is across here. Leave your comments in the chat section. Let's get on it. Shout out to Dave Ethan, by the way. So here we are screen sharing, and we start off with something very interesting. I just noted there's many notable firsts with Justice League. As with all of Zack Snyder's films, there's a lot of firsts in his films. You know, it's the first film, Zack Snyder's film is the first live action depiction where Batman and Superman were together in a movie with Wonder Woman. First time we saw the Trinity on the screen. The first time Doomsday appeared on the screen. The first time that we had a depiction with the death of Superman on the screen, and so on and so on and so on. So there were a lot of firsts that happened with BVS. Man of Steel was the first depiction of the absolute history of Superman in a coherent way. And the growing up of Superman, we got some of that in Man of Steel. So there was a lot of firsts in Man of Steel as well. And just the explanation for how he flies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And how his legacy comes from Krypton. Really put it in a nice, cohesive way. But when we look at Justice League also has a number of firsts. And one of them is seeing the first depiction of the old gods versus the new gods. It was the first live action and animation depiction of old gods versus new gods. We have not seen that ever in animation, not in comic book movies, not in the cartoons or the animated movies. We haven't seen that. We've seen it in the comics, of course, Rebirth comics and stuff like that, but we've not seen it ever in live action. And that's really incredible, because the new gods actually came off of the old gods. They kind of followed after the old gods had died off. So it's very interesting to see that there was a period of time in the first great age where the new gods came into turf where the old gods were. So I find that very interesting. Let's move on a little bit. And the next thing I want to talk about is the godlike status of Superman and Wonder Woman. And before I go on, though, it's interesting that the new god that came down, which was from Apocalypse, basically a demon from hell, pretty much, the leader of the demonic forces from hell. Notice that the demonic forces from hell wanted to take over everything and convert everything, whereas the old gods, which represent virtue and goodness in varied degrees, wanted to work along with the world and the inhabitants of it, and even foreigners that came to defend it, that had it in their sector, to protect against the new gods coming in to take over everything. And I think of the definition of God, that he is the Ancient of Days, he's the God of old. And I think about this new God as the Satan and the devil, and how he tries to bring up the new age movements and new age thinking. And I just think of the new gods, which are men trying to replace the old God. And I'm just thinking, I can see this metaphorical and metaphysical similarity between these two. And then another very interesting thing that crossed my mind as I was watching is the battle inside of us. That the world that we're looking at that's being battled is actually our minds, or fertile ground of our minds. And that we have thoughts which are just to dominate our minds and put us under oppression. We call them addictive thoughts. And we have other thoughts which actually free us up from ourselves to actually impact with the world, interface with the world, unite with the world, and actually do something good. So I just thought this was very interesting, that when we look at good versus evil, many times we don't look at the good versus evil in our psyche, the human psyche. And that battle is going on inside our minds. Which leads us, like I said, to these godlike beings, Superman and Wonder Woman. They have a lot in common with each other. And you can see them there both standing up, was resisting the blast of doomsday. That's not anything a human being could withstand. They would disintegrate into pieces. And while the infrastructure and the world around them disintegrates, these two actually stand and withstand it. And I always try to explain to people that there's a difference between being called a son of God and a child of God. And what I mean by this, all of us are created of God. All of us are creatures of God. All right. We may be gods among men, like rulers among our humanity. But then we have other gods. We have ministering spirits and stuff. And the difference between a son of God, one who's called born of God directly, both in spirit and in flesh, and a child of God, someone like Adam, who's just created and is a human being, but he's just a creation of God, is that the son of God, the sons of God, have power over angels. They have power over angels. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Meaning that in scripture it said, you will judge angels. So if I command a demon to come out of someone, it's going to leave, because the power of God flows through me. And just being a child of God is cool, the creation of God. There are lots of creations of God. But it's different when you have the power of God running through you. And it's very interesting with these two beings, a Kryptonian and a daughter of Zeus, that they have this blood-like, God-like power running through them. And I think this is what superhero movies basically identify, even Greek lore and a lot of other things, which we even call pagan. They try to identify the supernatural elements that are found within individuals, separating them from other individuals. And so I thought this was interesting. When we look, we see that two Kryptonians clash against each other in the Clash of Gods in BVS, where Doomsday, which is a hybrid between a human and a Kryptonian, and Superman, who is pure Kryptonian, they clash with one another. And just the cinematography and the picture, it's a beautiful portrait, by the way. The picture of it is it's breathtaking. But what's interesting is it's actually a parallel to what happened with Diana, where she also comes up against, she's a god herself, a half god as well. And we have a half god with part Amazonian, part god. And we have a full-bred god in Aries, and they're going up against each other. It's interesting, the full god is on the right side and the half god is on the left side, just as the half Kryptonian's on the left side you see against Superman, and the full Kryptonian is on the right side. I just thought that was very interesting. But anyway, the point is that the people on the left keep on defeating the people on the right, approaching them. All right. And in this case, Doomsday repelled Superman, Diana repelled Ares. I just thought that was just incredible and very interesting. And that Diana is a full-fledged, we're talking about gods here, so the clash of the gods. Now, the Kryptonians are seen as gods among Earth, people of Earth, because of their powers and abilities, whereas we had the full-fledged gods in Greek lore clashing against each other here. And there's some sayings just to allude to the fact that they are gods. So if you look at Jor-El, he said about Kal-El, who turns out to be Superman, he'll be a god to them. And then in Wonder Woman, Ares says to Diana, only a god can kill another god. So I thought that was very interesting. And of course, these were not the final showdowns between Doomsday and Superman or Diana and Ares. So I thought it was very interesting, the parallels between them and just the level of power that they have, and why Diana can withstand Doomsday's blasts and why Superman can withstand Doomsday's blasts. I thought it was just very interesting that 100 years before Diana and Kal-El meet Doomsday, Diana had already encountered a god, and she's talked about, I've killed creatures from other worlds before. She knows what she's talking about. So I thought this was just a very interesting dynamic. And again, it sort of shows you what Sons of God status is. It's a totally different status to just someone who is a human being walking among us. And it's in a different sort of way because this is more metaphorical, metaphysical. But the point is that this is what goes on not only in our heads, but it also goes on with Sons of God. And, the devil is also considered a son of God. Now, this one has to do with just 5 DCEU movies in. We've already covered so much ground in terms of 6 different worlds we've covered. And we've covered 8 types of people from 8 different worlds. And we'll go through them. We include Earth or humanity of Earth in that equation. So we start off with Krypton, which is 1. And of course, we have the Kryptonians that we just saw Superman facing Doomsday, which is a reincarnation of General Zod. His army came to Earth. We saw them up on Krypton. What I like about these worlds is the worlds are built, and you literally get background and tissue of these worlds. You get really fully and properly introduced to them. And Suicide Squad, we didn't really see the worlds, but we did see the people from the 13th dimension, what is known as Earth 13. Enchantress comes from there. I'm not too sure about Ichabod, where he comes from, but he seems to be the brother of Enchantress, so he probably comes from that realm as well. And then we also have Diablo, who seems to be related to Ichabod and Enchantress in some way, shape, or form. He seems to operate very much the similar way that these two operate, but he's resident in a young guy who I forgot his actual name. So that's very interesting as well, because apparently Ichabod can speak, Diablo can speak a language that Ichabod can understand. And then we have, so that's the 13th dimension, which is another world. And then you have the old gods from Mount Olympus, which is the 3rd world. Then you have Themyscira and the Amazons, which is the 4th world. Of course, the Amazonian goddess is Wonder Woman, and the old god is Ares. And then you have here Atlantis, which is a 6th world. Then you have the Apocalypsans, who are led by Steppenwolf, the Parademons, the armies, and the priests, and that comes from a 7th world. And then you have reference to the Green Lantern Corps with Yalangur, and he comes from an 8th world. Okay, so I find this very, very interesting, and is just so rich is the DCEU. The DCEU seems to be rich in lore and mythos. And we'll get some more clarity on Atlantis and the world in the sea in Aquaman next. And Shazam will just go back to the world of magic, and we'll see that also. But that's not necessarily a world. So we have 8 worlds in 5 movies. Well, at least people from 8 worlds in 5 movies. We have about 6 worlds in 5 movies that we've actually seen flushed out and developed. And will be flushed out some more in successive movies. So I find this huge because I can't think of any cinematic universe or franchise that has gone into such detail and actually examined so many worlds within 5 movies. That has not happened. So I thought that was just another first. Let's see what you got to say in the chat section now. See, there's some people there already, some viewers. Let's see what's going on in the chat section. What's up, people? William Muir, what's up? William Muir, what's up, Dave Ethan? Hey, guys, I'm on lunch now. I got an hour to talk to you all. Awesome, awesome, Dave Ethan. If you guys want to join me in the Hangout, feel free to do so. I would be more than happy for you guys to join me in the Hangout as well. So just let me know, and I'll put the link up there for you guys to join. If not, it's okay. You can just sit back and relax. You guys got any questions for me on the DCEU? Anything you want to talk about? I'm open to listening to you guys. By the way, I just read from Psalms 120. And yeah, we have these internal struggles, these internal battles. And I just wanted to share some of this stuff. Shout out to William Ruffin, who I've been trying to get on here so we can continue the podcast, talk about some other things. I just saw some recent DCEU news concerning Zack Snyder that he posted up a picture on Vero about, yeah, I was just about to talk about The Flash. That is the very first picture of The Flash, you know. W. Muir says, I love how the Flash movie is going so far. I don't know. I haven't seen any follow-ups on the Flash movie. I haven't heard anything on it. I'm just going to type in and see what they got here. And we have the Flash season 4. I don't really see anything. I see the Flash season. They say the Flash season 4 is now on Netflix. So Netflix seems to be taking up real estate like crazy. So recently we saw the Flash. Zack Snyder did something with the Flash where he was showing the Flash. You know, one of my compatriots in another group in Justice League Unite, he was saying that particular Vero account of the Flash that Zack Snyder showed was probably on the set of Suicide Squad, where Flash was looking at Harley Quinn. But just recently there, Zack Snyder also posted up a picture of the Flash. So that's pretty cool. I don't really know much updates on the Flash movie. Could you tell us more, William Muir, on what's going on with the Flash movie? I'm seeing here some updates. But what do you know about the Flash movie? Dave Ethan says, I forgot, what's the main difference and similarities between new gods and old gods from different lores? Well, to be honest with you, there's a lot of differences between the new gods and the old gods. And then you said different lores. So, you know, Marvel also has something on the new gods and the old gods. And then you have another franchise which deals with video games where they also have a different take on that. So there's a lot of different differences and similarities just between those. But when you're talking about the new gods, okay, so the new gods involve New Genesis and Apocalypse and some other in-between places. And they're basically fueled by something called the Source. R2 Lemonin, what's up, bro? And so you find that the new gods are, they are completely different to the old gods, because the old gods generally deal with Roman and Greek mythology, and the old gods are grounded on Earth. They're in Olympus and according to the mythos, they're stemmed from a different source. So that generally speaking, the new gods came on the scene because the old gods actually were wiped out, pretty much. But the new gods were around when the old gods were there. So they're different in that they are still around. The new gods are around. The old gods have disappeared and gone. As you can see in the DCU, that's how they also explain it. So that's one of the things. Now, because the old gods were present on Earth, the new gods never really came down to Earth to mess with it. When the old gods got wiped out, now the new gods started to, try to, well, not all the new gods, most of the new gods didn't, but the apocalyptic gods, Darkseid and these guys, they kept their eyes on what was going on planet Earth. Now, Orion, which is part of the new gods, and if you guys have watched any Justice League cartoon or Superman cartoon in the last 20 years, then you would have seen some of the characters from the new gods. Okay, you have Orion, you have Highfather. These are very, very powerful gods. Highfather, he wants to have what is called the life equation, and then the opposite of that is Darkseid. He wants the anti-life equation. Both ways you can go extreme, and you can cause problems. And there's a long story behind that Jack Kirby writes. But suffice it to say, the short version of it is that the old gods basically operated mostly on Earth. The new gods are in a different dimension and in a different part of the universe, but they can cross those dimensions and they can deal with other worlds. The Kryptonians, for instance, were very powerful as well. And some of the new gods, not all the new gods now, I see like Highfather and those guys were real powerful. And actually Darkseid is not as powerful as Highfather and those New Genesis. New Genesis is pretty powerful. And it's a long story, but the short version of it is that basically Apocalypse comes from New Genesis. Okay, so it's a very long story. So suffice it to say that Darkseid doesn't mess with Highfather. He doesn't mess with Orion. He doesn't mess with the new gods like that. Even though it's a long story, but Darkseid actually he died, and he was brought to the source, and then he was reborn, and it's a long story. Okay. So trying to make it simple, the new gods were limited to Earth, and they were around. The old gods were limited to Earth, and they were there for long before the new gods were on the scene. The new gods came, and generally speaking, they came as a result of the old gods being wiped out, and then they started to interface with our worlds and our dimension more because the new gods were kind of gone. Okay, and so that kind of explains why Zack Snyder went that route. W. Muir says, Kiersey Clemens is staying on as Iris, a holdover from the Snyder Cut. Mind you, they scrapped Flashpoint and made it back into a regular solo Flash movie. So I heard. And again, I'm cool with whatever they do once the directors get to do their vision. You see, the thing with me is just let the directors do their vision. Once Warner Brothers knows what they want, and they hire these directors and they want them to do it, and the directors are doing what they're doing, then you don't go now and just kind of screw it over and change up things and put another director in there. I just don't like that. I think the solo movie probably suffered from some of that. Anyway, Artuleminen man, shout out to you. If you want to join the hangout, let me know. W. Muir says the directors are rewriting the script, and I heard the rogues are going to be the villains. It will be more comedic. Count me as excited. Okay. Now, let me just be abundantly clear with you guys. Spider-Man Homecoming it wasn't my thing. So, I don't know how these directors, and I haven't gone and watched their New Line movie. I forgot what the name of it is, which is a comedy as well. So I don't know if Warner Brothers is trying to go via the comedy route with their stuff and get lighter. For me, I'm not really into that. Shazam will be okay, fine. But I'm not really looking to hee ha ha my butt off. So, when I think of the Flash, I think again, the dude is a forensic science. I think scientifically. So if these guys are going to kind of water down the Flash again, it bothers me a little bit. That's all I'm going to say about that. And the Flash character, I don't really think of him as a Joker all the time. So I don't know how they're going to do it. WMIR, you seem to be excited about that. I'm still on the fence with that. I'm not really hyped about anything, but it's okay. I mean, you don't have to be. Robert Directo says, very interesting to see what they have introduced into the DC film universe already. I can't wait to see Atlantis and the whole Atlantean society. Absolutely. I agree with that. I want to see that. And that's just a completely different world. I like the taste that I got in Justice League. I know it's not enough. It's much shorter than it should have been. But at the end of the day, I really enjoyed what I saw. And I like how it's a continuity, how when they were actually they were, earthbound, they were land-bound, that the design and the architecture was there. And it's just that the water came and flooded them out and drove them out. Well, they weren't driven underwater, but it just happened to be that the water drove them over, like the flood. And I like how he's using the antediluvian period and then the diluvian period to highlight that Atlantis is underwater, which makes sense because that's what most people think. Atlantis is underwater. So I like just the way how they're approaching that. And I would be interested to see if they give any history on Atlantis like they've been doing, excuse me, as they've been doing with all the others, Krypton, Themyscira. They haven't shown us Apocalypse, or they haven't shown us, but they showed us how, for instance, Steppenwolf and the Apocalyptic armies, how they're trying to terraform a world into Apocalypse. So, they showed us bits and pieces of that. And it was very exciting to see. So, I mean, I'm very interested in, watching at these films and how they progress. I'm very excited for Aquaman. I'm just hoping that, again, I would say this again because I have to put this caveat in there, that I hope Warner Brothers is not trying to dilute down what James Wan is doing and make the film. They've done it before with Suicide Squad. They did it again with Batman v Superman. They did it with Justice League. Are they going to tamper with this movie? I don't know. And that's the thing that kind of bothers me a little bit, that their input seems to always undermine these movies, that I wish these executives would just leave these movies alone so to be the best movies they possibly could be. And don't worry about time constraints. They didn't mess around with Patty Jenkins' movie. I'm just hoping that they don't mess around with this movie, because I haven't been hearing anything. I've heard nothing about Aquaman. And James Wan has been rendering, and they've been doing a lot of, obviously they have to do a lot of CG work to get this thing done. So we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I know James Wan wants to get it right. So I'm really looking forward to seeing just how good they do it, and how that once he's satisfied with it, I know then it's going to be something really fantastic. So we're just going to have to keep our fingers and toes sort of, locked over. We're just kind of hoping. The experiment in Justice League was pretty good, and it looked very natural. It looked like, you're in a world of coral and animals and sea creatures and stuff, and it felt like you were in the sea, deep in the ocean. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they will approach this and how they will make this movie. I'm very excited about Aquaman. Shazam, that's Shazam, so I'm cool with Shazam. I don't think that Flash should have all this hee-hee, ha-ha, and jokes in it. So I'm hoping that they don't make it too comedic. And I do know that these guys, they can do an edgy film as well, and it needs to have the edge. Something about Warner Brothers and DC's, they always push the envelope, they're always edgy, and they always hit you mentally with a different perspective on things. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to taking the edge off of these films. They took the edge off of Justice League. Clearly, they took off a lot of edge from Justice League. I'm hoping they don't do that for the rest of their DCEU films. Shazam, I don't know what kind of film Shazam will be, because Shazam is more of a kid in an adult's body. So that may be a child-friendly movie, because maybe lots of kids will identify with certain things in this movie and certain fantasies that they want. So I expect Shazam to be a movie that maybe it appeals to older audiences, but I think it'll be probably the most family-centric movie of them all. And it makes sense that it will be so. And you probably wonder, how does Shazam fit into the Justice League? We'll all understand that by and by. But I'm looking forward to that. I know Sandberg can really go out there also with his stuff. He can go off the deep end with risk. Sandberg can do a lot of things. So, it's going to be interesting how they pitch Shazam, how Shazam comes off. If you actually end up laughing your socks off. But I'm not interested in a DCEU where it's just laughs all the time. I'm really not interested in that. but that's just me. I don't know for you guys and what your opinions are. R2 Lemon says playing God of War, but I can multitask by talking while I do it. There you go. The God of War is what I was talking about. God of War also has all these different gods in there, Ares and all these old gods. I don't think they have any new gods in there because obviously they don't have new gods. But they do dabble into Greek lore and into Roman lore and into Norse lore. Okay. And it's similarly for the MCU. And again, the MCU has old gods, but well, at least the Greek gods. They don't call them old gods. But again, in the MCU, they don't dabble into the new gods. Jack Kirby did his thing with that, and they have equivalents. They have like Thanos, and Thanos is not really equivalent to Darkseid. He's kind of a different. He's kind of a horse of a different color, but. And if you look at the Marvel films, as strange as it sounds, they actually have humor in their stuff a lot more than DC does, at least in the past. So it's interesting how that all plays out. So R2, you said God of War, but I can multitask by talking while I do it. It's up to you if you want to join the Hangout. Just let me know. If you say yes, then I'll post the link. Anybody else who wants to join the Hangout, I can post up the link very quickly here, so that you guys can get access to it, and then you can jump in if you want to, and we can continue this discussion. You know, let me provide the link for you guys if you want to jump in. Just mind it, I'm not going to keep this link for very long because I don't want trolls to come through and mess up this Hangout. Let's just put it that way. So here we go, and booyah! There's the link. You've got 10 seconds to get to the link and jump into the group. I'm counting now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I got to remove the link right now. I hope you guys got that. Got that link. Okay, I'm removing the link right now. Okay, so let me see if anybody else came on. I don't hear anything. Okay, guys. It's 1:25 p.m. We're in Corpus Christi for today. It's Corpus Christi. Hold on a second. Let me just move away and take care of something over here. R2, what's up, man?
Great. Now, like playing, as I said.
Yeah. You go ahead. Yeah, man. Good to see you. Good to have you on here. I'm just going to move away for a second. Anything you want to say on the DCEU questions, anything like that, let me know. Well, we can talk about the DCU right here. I just need to go get a phone in the corner here.
I can talk. While doing this, it's easy to do two things at once.
No, that's all right. Have fun, man. It's vacation.
Yeah. And until he comes back and watch, and will eventually probably rewatch this video. This was the only day in this week that I didn't have to do anything after work. Monday to Tuesday. Summer courses. Yesterday, I needed to go there. Help.
What character are you playing? The actual guy?
Yeah, that's Kratos and his son Atreus.
Nice. So while you're doing that, we're going to entertain some more questions on the DCEU. There's a couple things going on in the DCU at present, so we'll try and entertain some of your questions, folks. The W. Mir, he says, and also the art designer from Dread 2000, Machina. So let me just mute that mic right there. While that's going on. Right. I'm just muting you for a second there, R2. Okay, so yeah, I was just trying to make this clear so you guys can hear me. And also the art designer from Dread 2012 and Ex Machina is on the Flash. That sounds interesting. Where are you getting information from, William? Where are you getting the information for the Flash? Where are you getting this stuff from? Because I'm not seeing it anywhere. Is it on what you call that thing? Oh well. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Ex Machina was pretty good. I hope that I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what to say about the Flash, but you're following it, so you could give us the updates on what's going on with the Flash and what you think about that. From the trades, what's the trades? What's that? You on WB site or something? Man, they really switched up directors all the time for the Flash movie. I hope these directors stay on board to do it. You said from the trades. I don't know what the trades are, W. Mir. What else we got here? Yeah, then we also have a new, you know what? A New Gods movie is going to come out, Dave Ethan, as well. A New Gods movie is going to come out. So, you know, and that will also clarify a little bit more about the New Gods. And I'm happy that they're doing that before we actually get Darkseid being shown. W. Mir, the channels I follow are totally random. Film Junkie, Chris Wong, Swenson, Future, XMDC Comic Zones. Oh, from them. Okay, cool. Yeah, I know Totally Random. I checked him out. Dave the Film Junkie, I'm not really following him and Chris Wong anymore. Future DC Comic Zones, I'm not really following him either. So I really don't really follow those guys, but it's all good. There's a couple things that I didn't really talk to you guys about concerning the DCEU, but we'll talk about it in time. At least concerning the upcoming movies. One of the things I noticed, hey, by the way, for those of you who are on Facebook, I will be opening up the, I haven't done that Facebook group yet, but we're going to start opening up a group for Aquaman and also for Shazam and for Wonder Woman. We know those are the 3 movies coming next. So look out for me opening up those groups pretty soon. You're like hashtag Atlantis forever. I don't think I'd say Atlantis forever, man. That's like Wakanda forever. We don't borrow things from the MCU, man. We make our own. We make our own themes, our own mottos. You know.
Yeah, original.
Yeah, man. What's up?
Was muted for some reason.
No, I muted you because the background noise when I was talking. So that's why.
Okay. Ei tästä ottaa, kun sanoo loppuun.
So what's going on, man? What I would say is that, you know, William was saying that, you know, it's Atlantis forever. And I was like, why would you say Atlantis forever? We not know.
Yeah, that's, I saw it in the chat section and thought, yeah, that's...
MCU, man. We don't need a copy.
Yeah, something more original would be better.
Yeah. We will see, man. Aquaman always says, yeah. You know what I mean? I would like to say, I saw him in his new suit. You saw him with the new Atlantean outfit, which is much bulkier and much bigger. But he still has the same quadrant. He has a quadrant or quintident. You know, just a poke, lol. Yeah, man. The success of the DCEU is what we're all about. So I'm going to open up those groups to see people who are excited for those movies. Beware of the anti-DCEU people in the incoming days. Yeah, Dave. That's why we form in groups so that people. You remember, I didn't form a Justice League group until Justice League came out, unfortunately. And then that's when I formed the Justice League group. And that's when you saw how many people came to that group rather quickly. And there's still a lot of people coming to the group. It's just they don't answer the questions. I'm not just going to let people in the group if they don't answer the questions, you know. W. Mir says that armor reminds me of Aquaman's armor, but modified. Yeah, from the games, Injustice game, doesn't it? Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Injustice armor that Aquaman sometimes wears, that bulky armor.
Yeah. Yeah, that armor that Jason Momoa has in the new poster, that it does have some of those. It's
Yeah.
most likely that some of that Atlantean and there was wasn't there something like a action figure prototype type concept of what Jason Momoa would look in the traditional Aquaman costume, which is the scaled armor which resembled the orange shirt that he
Right.
usually does have. But the new one it's more like an armor and not like a
Scaly kind.
what's that called?
But you see that Mira has the skin tight, scaly clothes. In Aquaman,
But in the Justice League, it did have those bracers and shoulder graphics and other things. But it's not. But it's now more of the skin matching the one that she has in comics.
yeah, exactly. The one that most
It has a long sleeve version. Actually, I like the when I have read the comics on Aquaman, I like more the one where she has the long sleeve one and not the one where she's. It's actually, hold on a minute.
yeah. Which is interesting because we don't know what Jason Momoa is wearing throughout the Aquaman movie, so it'll be interesting. There's going to be a lot of surprises. I haven't seen the Solo movie, which is going off on Star Wars, but trust me, I'm coming full circle with Aquaman. But it's interesting how people now are downing that movie and saying, "Oh, nobody really wanted to see Solo anyway." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? Of course, people wanted to see Solo. That was one of the most demanded things that people would have a Solo movie." So it's kind of ironic that people would be saying that now. But it's the same thing with Aquaman. We have to watch out for people saying negative things about Aquaman because, nobody really wanted to see Aquaman after Justice League or whatever. People might say that. So I'm just saying, I was talking to Trent Osborne, and Trent Osborne brought this up. Let me see what you guys' view on this is. Trent Osborne said that it may be better that we don't get the Snyder Cut right now. And his reasoning was this. Let's say Aquaman does well. Let's say Shazam does well. When you hold out like that, people actually siding with Zack Snyder and saying, "Oh, Zack Snyder, he's a good director." Remember, before that, people were saying, "Oh, Zack Snyder's terrible," blah 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 blah. Now people are kind of siding with Zack Snyder because they're saying that WB has interfered with a lot of his movies, right? So they're siding with him, and he's putting out stuff on Vero, and the media's covering it. And maybe they should just keep it positive, just in case if Justice League comes out and they realize it's more or less the same movie with a little extra stuff, and then they say, Zack Snyder wasn't all that or whatever. Instead of that happening, maybe hold out on Justice League until next year. Let me hear your views on it. I think I have my own views on that, but what do you guys think about that?
Sorry.
Yeah. William Muir also says, "Did you guys see the Black Manta Lego preview?" I didn't. Man, you're really into this thing. I haven't seen no Black Manta Lego preview to show you what Black Manta will look like. I'm looking forward to seeing what Black Manta looks like, what Orm will look like, what Volko will look like. And that's just some of the players. I even want to see Queen Atlantis, man. She's going to be in that. She's going to be in there. Apparently, she's dead now. So
Yeah,
you're gonna see her in a flashback or something. But
by Nicole Kidman, as from what I heard.
yeah, I was thinking the same thing, William Muir. I was thinking put out the Snyder Cut as soon as possible. William Muir says this.
What is that?
What's that?
Yeah, when we're talking about Mera, I have a. This is the Blackest Night, which I have got in the 2009, and okay. This is the comic with which I saw Mera the first time.
Okay.
Something about I remember there's been a great shot of her. Maybe it's just this one. The Blackest Night. This is where the first appearance of Mera in the Blackest Night.
But that's not the original suit. The original suit.
But so this is probably what she was wearing originally, which I actually like. Man, look at this hair. Her hair is gorgeous. Yeah, but anyway, that's probably something they recreated with the one that.
And they have different designs for the green suit. There's one.
But the first green suit that came from the James Wan posted out is similar to that one compared to the one that we saw in Justice League.
Yes. The one we saw in Justice League is my more recent one that they did in the New 52. She was in the New 52. She looked like that when she went up against the Justice League and stuff. But I think this is just my speculation. This is just fan speculation. What do you guys think? Do you think that Jason Momoa will at some point in time show up in the typical original Aquaman suit in Aquaman? You think he will? What does anybody think about it? I'll just throw that out there for everybody. Yes, so putting the Snyder Cut ahead of Aquaman release is only going to help Aquaman, is my educated opinion. I agree with you there, William Muir, because there's a lot of Aquaman footage, action footage for sure, a lot of action footage that was cut out of the movie. We know this because you can see a snapshot of the parademon floating in the water while Mera is fighting Steppenwolf. So obviously Steppenwolf came down there with some parademons with him. I don't know what happened to them. And it was a much bigger shebang down there. And then, of course, we know that we've seen footage and clips, not footage, but clips, like stills of Aquaman on land, and seems to be giving a little background history on his story with this, you know, when he was on land. So there's more to this story. You remember he was in this van going somewhere and stuff like that. So there's more background story to Aquaman in Justice League. And so, I mean, if we could get a Snyder Cut, I mean, you know, what would be really nice, since this is not going to be playing in a theater, there should be no, I know this is unrealistic, but still, there should be no time frame restriction on it. Just give us everything that Zack Snyder had. Make sure it's streamlined so it's telling the story, and just give us everything. You know what I'm saying? You know, like how Watchmen had the director's cut, then it had the ultimate cut. Just go straight to the ultimate cut of the Justice League and give us everything Zack Snyder did. You know, if it's a 5-hour, and I'm just joking. You know, more is always better. You know, because a lot of people don't know. Oh, wow. Wow, the way how this thing actually shows me I look like a Muppet. I'm watching it on YouTube right now. And it's just because, wow, I'm just being so very expressive. Anyway, that's besides the point. Yeah, so, yeah, just show us everything, man. Show us everything. You know, I forgot to tell you guys, in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the warehouse scene, we didn't see all the footage in the warehouse scene. You guys know that? Do you guys know there's more footage of that warehouse scene? God damn. Anyway, that's just besides the point. But my point is that Zack Snyder puts so much detail into his movies that, yeah, if you saw that extra footage about the background of Aquaman and also what happened with Vulko and all that stuff that happened on the sea and all that extra action that went on and just all that stuff, that juicy stuff of an Aquaman, man, that would be, and you know, the way how Zack might have shot certain scenes, because Aquaman, I heard, was much more fiercer, dealing with he wasn't shitting around when he was dealing with Bruce Wayne. He actually was much more intimidating. So it would have been nice to see all of that. And just imagine doing that just before the Aquaman film. But the thing about it is, we would have to hope that James Wan's Aquaman is James Wan's Aquaman. It's not affected by Warner Brothers saying, oh, we need this for the kiddie stuff. That shit really annoys the crap out of me, thinking about it in reflection, that these guys are not learning from their mistakes. I'm just hoping they have learned from their mistakes, because they're saying we have a new president and everything. Well, they're saying that we're going a different direction. We need to really, we're not going to Marvel route with certain things. I'm hoping so. Okay, I'm hoping so. You know, I'm not saying that certain characters don't lend themselves to be funny. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that I hope that they're not tampering with what James Wan is doing. That's all I'm saying. More hype, Bill, says William Muir. And then he says, my best guess is he appears in the original costume. There's a maquette months ago. There was a maquette months ago. What's a maquette, by the way? I just want to know. MAQUTTE. What does that mean?
Let's see if I.
You know what it is?
No, but if I
Google it.
let's do this and maquette. According to Wikipedia, French word for scale model, sometimes referred in Italian as plastico or modello, is a small-scale model or a rough draft of an unfinished sculpture. It's probably the same thing that I mentioned earlier about the Aquaman costume of Jason Momoa, or action figure that I thought it was was of Jason Momoa in the orange shirt, green pants kind of armor.
You saw that? Where did you see it?
There was a picture shown somewhere. It was either on Twitter or Facebook, but I remember there something like that being a thing.
Okay, cool. I would like to see that. But I'm looking forward to Aquaman because I know it's going to be a different kind of film, and that's what excites me, man. Aishan Saxena, shout out to you. First time I've ever seen you, Aishan Saxena. Do you think if WB decides to release the Snyder Cut, if it exists, obviously, in the theater, it would help JL cross $1 billion mark? That's tricky. There's a couple reasons why that would be a tricky situation. I think they can do it in select theaters like they did Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Cut. I don't think they can put it in all theaters because there's a schedule for different movies in theaters. But no, I don't know if it'll cross the $1 billion mark because they won't be able to do it worldwide to start with. I'm pretty sure if it's good, man, people will, especially if they could get access to IMAX. Oh my God, it would be crazy. Yeah, if they could do that, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. It depends on how people receive, first of all, Zack Snyder's cut, but I think they should go by the home box office route, in my opinion. This is just my uneducated fan thinking opinion, because people will want to get it and just keep it and rewatch it over and over again. Of course, if you have it in select theaters, you know, that nice big screen feel for it, it would be incredible. I would love to have that happen in my country in IMAX. At least they do some kind of deal with IMAX. But IMAX has limited amount of shows and limited amount of space, and there's always all these big other hit movies coming out. Even though Aquaman's coming out very late in the year, so it may be possible to actually do that because that's the only other DC movie coming out. And I don't know what the schedule is for other comic book movies this year. Let me look in Box Office Mojo. Maybe that'll tell me if it may be possible. It depends on how soon they can finish off that cut as well. Comic book movies. But maybe it's possible. I don't know. It's you know, if they want to give a second go at it and distribute, yeah, sure, why not? Hell, I think Star Trek, Sony did Star Trek. They pushed them out a second time into the cinema. So if they got something, you know, good going on, let me see what's happening in terms of comic book movies for the coming year. Oh my God, Black Panther really killed it. $698,794,741 domestically. Black Panther just freaking killed it, man. Freaking killed it. And you know, it had less theaters it was showing in than Avengers Infinity War. That thing whooped Avengers Infinity War's behind, man. Avengers Infinity War had 4,474 theaters. Worldwide, I think Avengers Infinity War is past Black Panther, but I mean, when we're talking, you know, domestically, Black Panther has the record for that. Maybe Infinity War will pass it, but I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you guys, Black Panther is a revolution. It is a much better film than Avengers Infinity War in every single way, shape, and form. You know, that's the movie I have to talk about. But what am I looking at? I'm looking at upcoming releases. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, so upcoming releases. We have July the 6th, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Venom comes out October the 5th. Yeah, that's it for live action films. So Sony's also coming out with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 3D. I don't know if that's I don't know what that
film about the ultimate the second Spider-Man from the Ultimate Universe, Miles Morales.
Okay, but is this going to be live action or a
animated movie?
Oh, okay, but that has nothing. That's not going to compete with anything. So Venom's the only other thing that comes out in October. So let me be abundantly clear. There is the possibility for what you guys are saying. William Muir, who was the guy that asked that question? It was who's the person that, oh my God, where are you guys? Okay, so Aishan, shout out to you, Aishan Saxena. It's possible they could actually toss that movie into the cinemas, somewhere in November maybe, and just go as long as they can, because the next movie besides Aquaman, they could keep it in the cinemas with Aquaman. Even though I don't think they would want to do that, they would probably want Aquaman. They won't want that movie to compete with Aquaman, but it would be a nice appetizer somewhere in November, because nothing's coming out after Venom. So if they go in maybe somewhere, it depends on how Venom does to start with. If Venom does well, that's great too, because it will help with this very anticipated movie. But what I would say is they put it out on DVD, which means I don't think they have time to put it out on DVD. It depends on how Justice League's run goes. If Justice League keeps on running, the theatrical version is doing well at the box office, the home box office all the time, they got to wait for that to fizzle out, I would think. And then after that, if they have time this year, they can drop it just before Aquaman, which is very much at the end of the year, which is a very smart idea. It's almost near Christmas. So if they, because they really got nothing. Look, after Ant-Man and the Wasp, you got 3 months of nothing. And then you have Venom. Then you have, for summer comic book movies, Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to do well, because there's nothing they're competing with in terms of comic book movies. Then Venom comes out. All right, let me show you guys what I'm talking about so you guys can see what I'm doing. So you guys can see what I'm seeing here. Jump. Bing, bong. Right. So you can see that these are the upcoming movies here. So Ant-Man and the Wasp, that's July. And then there's nothing until October. And then there's nothing until December. So if I were them, I can't drop it so early. I mean, we got to wait for, let's say somewhere around September. They drop it sometime around September. Okay. I don't think it's going to affect Venom. Then again, it could affect Venom. But if they dropped it somewhere around September, they dropped the DVD somewhere around September. It's only Venom, and Venom's still going to be the other movie. So it doesn't really matter. It's just 2 comic book movies. That will not be a big problem. If it was like 3 or 4, like it dropped in the middle of Star Wars and Thor Ragnarok, and Guardians was still going, and Spider-Man Homecoming was still going while all that was going on. So in this case, if you drop it somewhere around Venom, maybe after it or before it, you drop the DVD, and then you say in select theaters, or start off at select theaters. And if it's so good, then you maybe go bigger. You could have at least a month before Aquaman to do something. You know what I mean? You could do something there, and then maybe if it's doing well, it will not do as well as Aquaman. I don't think so, at least. I don't want it to outshine Aquaman. That's the risk you make in doing so. But let's say that it does well. That would help Aquaman, like William Muir was saying, and it's box office. There is the risk of it hurting Aquaman, actually. So you have to be, you have to think about how those numbers would play out. Maybe putting it after Aquaman might be good as well. Because Shazam comes out way in April. So you put it after Aquaman, it'll be competing with things like Hellboy and Silver and Black and Captain Marvel. So if you put it out before Captain Marvel, maybe it works out well. But then again, Aquaman's run is also going while all of that's happening. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It depends on, you really want to help Aquaman. You don't want to hinder Aquaman, because Aquaman's going to have competition. The very next month, it's going to have competition at Hellboy. and then Silver and Black, and then it's going to have competition with Captain Marvel. And then after Captain Marvel comes out, Shazam's going to come out after Captain Marvel. And then you have an Avengers movie, and then you have Spider-Man Homecoming. And then they're supposed to, Sony's going to try and bring out The Crow that very same year. That's crazy. So 2019 is going to be a nuts year. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Marvel movies. 5 Marvel movies in 2019. Then you're going to have Hellboy as well. Then you're going to have Shazam. Then you're going to have The Crow that same year. Plus, yeah, that year is packed. It's packed. So 2018 is actually not as packed a year. This is the year to really exploit it. So if you want to put out a Zack Snyder movie, really, I think you're right. You should put it out this year. You should put it out this year because next year is going to be highly competitive. So you probably want to put it out this year. That's what you really want to do. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, let me just let me move out of this. Yeah. So, having said that, let me see what other questions. You guys have all kinds of questions here. Let's see what they say. Dave Ethan says, "Yep, I hope Warner Bros. Will release the Snyder Cut before the time of Aquaman's release." William Miranda says, "Agreed, Dave." William Miranda says, "Maquette, I think I spelled it wrong. It's a sculpture model of the costume." Okay, so they actually have a sculpture. You saw a sculptured model of the. I saw a sculptured model of Aquaman's costume when they just opened up Justice League with Zack Snyder, and the costume was in the background. That was the armored costume. I didn't see a sculpted model of Aquaman's costume. That's interesting. If you can post the link up for us somewhere, okay? Dave Ethan says, "But remember, like I said in my meme, I made, if you truly hate the theatrical cut of Justice League, then you don't deserve the Snyder Cut. So DCU fans should watch what they're saying." Exactly. I agree with you. Again, Dave Ethan, I totally agree with you. You know, I let me say it this way. There are things in the Justice League cut, the theatrical cut, I don't particularly like at all. They grate against my last nerve. Every time I see them, I go, I cringe a bit, right? But let me be abundantly clear. I'm able to forgive those things because the overlying story of the theatrical cut that I saw, I thought was pretty well done. And for what it was going for, what Warner Bros. Was going for, and what, because think about it this way. Just imagine, think about the huge disaster that could have happened if Whedon tried to work with Junkie XL and he just could not do what Junkie, he couldn't work with Junkie. He just couldn't work with Junkie because he couldn't do what Zack Snyder was doing. You have to understand, folks, Whedon's a different director to Zack Snyder. He tried to emulate Zack Snyder. He came up short, and he was doing it with Danny Elfman. Just imagine if he had to work with Junkie XL on this, keeping exactly the tone that was going on there, because Whedon covered up certain things with the theatrical kind of humor, okay, which what Elfman is able to carry with his music. Just imagine trying to work with Junkie XL. It would have been a disaster, folks, a disaster. And I'm talking about really, like, this thing wouldn't have even left the box office. It would have been like at minus from the get-go. And that's the thing I think a lot of people are being unfair with Joss Whedon with. Joss Whedon's not a director like Zack Snyder. He tried to emulate certain things, you know, but he's not a director like Zack Snyder. So it's like you're asking Whedon, oh, it's just simple. Just carry out this. And Warner Brothers is in Whedon's ear saying, no, Zack still needed to go this direction. So Whedon could do some of what Warner Brothers wanted him to do, but he knew he had to have a musical director that could work with. And that's what people keep on forgetting. It's not as easy as just carry out this. For him, he doesn't function that way. So how is he going to do that with a musical director that, first of all, will demand of him that he does things a certain way, like how Zack was doing. And then people will say, well, the movie was effectively done. What was Whedon doing? Well, remember, Zack Snyder, even while he was there, Warner Bros. Was saying, no, we still need this a little bit lighter. We need this tone a little bit this, and we still need this runtime. So when you think about it, Whedon was able to do everything that Warner Brothers wanted him to do. Okay? They wanted a certain runtime. They wanted it to be not as graphic, not as violent, so that kids could go watch it. Okay? They want everything they wanted of the movie. Whedon stepped up and he did it. Okay? So at the end of the day, you know, it's kind of disingenuous to say, oh, Whedon, he was terrible, blah, blah, blah. No, this movie actually made money because Whedon did what Whedon knows how to do, okay? Tried to emulate some of the things that Zack Snyder did, and then Warner Bros. Tried to taper him off where he was going deep down the deep end, taper him off so that they could get the movie to feel in the tone of what Zack Snyder does. And for the most part, they pull that off. The thing about it is they did not cater to the fact that because they compromised certain things, certain members of the fans just went berserk on them. It was like, shh. And it's not just the fan base, but I'm saying, yes, the movie was under hypercritical scrutiny. There was a lot of attacks. There was a lot of negativity around it. But at the end of the day, you know, Warner Bros. Got what they wanted. This is what they wanted for the movie, okay? And it did not work for them. And that's why that's what I'm saying to Dave Ethan and all these other people. They got what they wanted out of the movie. They were satisfied with what they saw. It didn't work. Okay, they were satisfied with Green Lantern movie. It didn't work. They were satisfied with Superman Returns movie. It didn't work. They were satisfied with Batman and Robin movie. It didn't work. Okay, it should tell them that you've got to trust the director that you're dealing with, and let that director direct what they're directing. Once you hire a director to do a certain kind of movie, then just, unless if you didn't want them to do this kind of movie, why did you hire them? You know what I mean? So that's why they're now screening. So with the Flash movie that's coming up, you see a lot of directors, they pitch their thing and then Warner Brothers realizes, nah, this is not the kind of person I want. Fine. Now when you get the director that you want for the kind of movie you want, nobody can say anything, because when the director has finished their directing of the movie, it's either you like the movie or you don't like the movie. But it's 100% what the director was thinking of doing. And that's the way how Warner Bros. Has always been in terms of directors, that they allow the directors to shape their vision of what, once they've selected the person they think is best suited for it. And I think that's the way they should have gone. I always think about Tim Burton's movies. And I've said this before. I said like Batman 1989, they loved him. They loved Tim Burton for Batman 1989. Never mind, they got the flack for it. It was too violent for kids and stuff. And he got and Tim Burton went even more violent in Batman Returns 1992. I loved it. It was edgy. You know, it was Tim Burton, yes, but it was edgy, you know. And I still think that's the best Tim Burton Batman I've ever seen. Then they shafted him on Batman Forever. They shafted him on the Catwoman movie. And they shafted him on Superman Lives. Do you realize, you understand what I'm saying? So that I'm just saying, the guy who brings it to the table, it's either one of two things. You're either going to let this guy continue, or you're going to say, thank you very much. But don't set the guy up. You know what I mean? If he had a contract to do a number of different movies with you or whatever, and you think this is not the direction to go, fine. But at the end of the day, they paid for it. Catwoman was a flop. Batman Forever was, it was okay. Batman and Robin was a flop. It paid for it. They should have stayed with Tim Burton. And these are lessons that they need to learn. And they haven't been learning over their course of time. All right. They tried to get Superman up and running. It flopped. Bryan Singer, because it was about catering to the women and stuff. And don't be too edgy. And it needs to be. So it flopped. Oh, by the way, they also edited his movie for runtime. Okay. Then we had this movie. What's it called? Green Lantern. Not Green Lantern. Was it Green Lantern? Was it Green Lantern? It was Green Lantern. And again, that flopped. Playing it too safe. They thought this was great. It was going to be good. It was, you know, and they did great work with the CG and stuff. But again, they're not known for those kinds of movies. If you're going to be funny, it's edgy funny. If you're going to be serious, it's going to be edgy serious. They always have the edge on their movies. That's what we liked Warner Brothers for, their edge and the creativity of their movies. And they keep on veering away from that for reasons unknown to me, to try and sell toys or whatever they're trying to do. I'm not quite sure what they're trying to do, because it's always counterproductive. And they should learn that some of their movies are always going to be controversial, because they're always edgy and pushing the boundaries on things. So get used to it. Embrace that. Just bring something new to the table. Let your directors bring something fresh and new to the table. You know, Man of Steel, as much as people say X, Y, and Z, now people see it as holy ground and it's great. And some people even call it a masterpiece. Why? Because it was edgy and it took a different perspective on things with Superman. And that's the direction they need to stay with. Warner Brothers is edgy. That's what they do. Even their comedies, even their funny little parodies of Batman, it's edgy. Their humor is edgy. Okay. And that's how they have to be. Keep it that way. Now, some people say, well, you know, Batman v Superman should have been rated R. Well, guess what? Zack Snyder was going to have, unfortunately, he was going to have a rated R movie. He didn't plan it to be rated R. It just so happened that the ratings body said, oh, too much blood here. So it was going to be rated R, but it wasn't really a rated R. It did have one F-bomb. But the PG-13 movies of the 90s, of the 80s, they had F-bombs. They may have 2-3 F-bombs in them. And I know it's a superhero movie, but nonetheless, they had 2-3 F-bombs in them, and it was still PG-13. So I don't understand how it became rated R. But the point is, treating superhero movies as if they are real things happening in the world, and that is a sort of mature content, seems to be something that Warner Bros. At times dials back from and says, no, I don't think we want to go that route, because if you look at studies about people right now, they want to be in fantasy and they want to laugh and they just want to take away their problems. You can't back out from what you've always been and try to be something else. And that's their problem. Anyway, what do you think, R2, about what I'm saying?
Well, about what you're saying. Well, it was about what the movies were getting.
Exactly. I mean, Marvel does what they do, and they have a huge fan base already. They have a huge fan base that buys into what they're doing, and that what they're doing is correct. So why are you trying to be like that? You want to separate yourself from that, I would think. You know, Fox has their own way of doing things. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss, but they have their way of doing things. And I don't think DC should be any different. You have your own way of doing things. There's supposed to be a Spawn movie coming out, and I've just heard that Jamie Foxx is going to be the guy.
Right? Yeah, and Todd McFarlane, who created the character, is going to be the writer and director for it.
Yeah. So
in the writing department, that could be a good thing, because he's the one who created the character and knows what the character is about. But the directing department is something that could be. You know, there was the movie some years ago, the Spirit movie, which Frank Miller wrote and directed.
There you go.
It was visually, well, it was something, but it was also pretty much filmed at the backlot and used and in a film noir kind of way. But it also made the whole movie look like it was happening in a ghost town.
Right.
Yeah, you know, you haven't seen The Spirit.
Exactly. You know, so it's possible. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what McFarlane has put his hands and feet into many different things and been successful at them. So we'll see. I'm going back to these comments here. William Muir, he says, make it a double feature for Thursday night showings of Aquaman. So they could probably make it a double feature with Aquaman, which would be good. They did that with Wonder Woman and Justice League, I think. Not Justice League, sorry. Wonder Woman and BVS or something like that. It was Suicide Squad. I can't remember what it was. It was a double feature. Andres Rivera says it's animated. The Crow? The Crow is animated?
No, the Miles Morales Spider-Man movie.
Spider-Man. Okay, Spider-Man. Okay. Hey, by the way, I don't think that's Spider-Man that we're seeing currently in the MCU. That's Spider-Boy, man. Spider-Man's a guy. He's a big man. Andres Rivera, the Crow is not going to happen. Oh, really? Oh, that sucks. But
that's news to me, actually.
He says Jason Momoa left the project. Dave Ethan says, gotta go now, gotta get back to work. Talk to y'all later. Yeah, shout out to you, man. Aishan Saxena says, what's your opinion on Penguin as the main villain for the Batman? We had that before, though. We've had
But it could be a different story also. The
Oh,
Penguin in Batman Returns was the whatever what that was. Oh, but Penguin is also something of a corporate, also something of a corporate villain, also that also or like a basically the Penguin would be also seen like as a blue color villain. Or maybe as a sorry, white color villain that he could and in that sense, you know that if you have watched the Gotham in Gotham, for example, it was the crime, but it was also legitimate crime, some kind of that crime that gets brushed under the rug or something. Or, for example, or another example of how Penguin could be used is, you know, there was this TV show called The White Collar. That show, it had two actors playing an FBI agent, and then there was another a professional thief or forger, and something in that who worked together. The other one, the FBI agent had caught him and put him in jail, and then when for a momentarily in the pilot episode we saw him escape, and the FBI agent found him quickly because he wasn't really trying to escape for personal reasons. He was, but okay, it was for a woman, and then when they saw each other, the the thief saw something on the FBI agent from a case he had been working when he learned that he had escaped, and that gave him a clue about what it was, and that led to a successful bust or something like that. And that began the show's partnership between them, and they started working on solving white collar crimes. Penguin is a white collar criminal. Yeah, backdoor door deals, black market sales, all those kind of things. Human trafficking is also something that Penguin might do. For example, in the Batman Earth One graphic novel written by Jeff Johns, if Penguin was shown as a really corrupted and not really hiding that mayor of Gotham who was in leagues with an original villain called the Birthday Boy, who that was seriously fucked up. The Birthday Boy who killed little girls and something like that. That he blackmailed people had kidnapped their kids and gave the Birthday Boy, and that Penguin was. That is a concept in which the Penguin could be used.
Right. I see what you're saying. So that the Penguin basically is a guy who works in all facilitating crimes, basically.
For example, yeah. Also, there was also some kind of a mini series that came out when the New 52 was fresh for Penguin. It showcased about his upbringing as a deformed child and something that where he showed jealousy about how deformed about his own deformed body, and in a one confrontation with Batman, it was actually quite passive and about where Batman basically stood there and lectured him about the crime he had almost or not almost caught, and there was this inner monologue from Penguin how he was jealous that Batman was in a perfect human shape, physical shape, shape and strength, and he himself was short and obese and deformed, something like that.
Okay. You know, well, we'll see. What I'll tell Aishan Saxena is, you know, Batman as a main, Penguin as a main villain for Batman could work very well, depending on what direction the director's trying to go in. He's trying to do a film noir, we all know, and we know it's going to be something that Batman's kind of reflecting on his past somewhat, and he's a victim of his past. So it should be very interesting in that respect.
Yeah, there was actually some commentary or maybe a commentary, but something of a documentary on about Batman's psyche and his villains. And Penguin was basically was described as Batman when his finances had gone wrong.
Cool.
It was some of point of view that they were making in the documentary.
Cool. I think that to add to that, I would say that you know, the mystique with Batman has always been his psychology, of course. So it would be interesting to see how.
Yeah, in that sense, it could be shown as a great parallel when it comes to psyches
right
and what Penguin is.
And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised that, you know, the Penguin front, like he would be, you know, they would say, okay, he's the main antagonist in the movie, or not necessarily main antagonist, but the main villain in the movie. But like you said, like in the future, you know, like in a movie like The Fugitive, he ends up leading Batman to the real crime and the real problem. It may be that the Penguin's just a facilitator that moves through to get Batman to where he needs to go.
That can work as well. Another thing also there is a film noir story or comic exists about Batman called Broken City. In that story, Penguin is something of not these things, an informant, and can give him back and something like that. That Batman is willing to look away from some illegal businesses that Penguin is doing in exchange for Penguin giving him information about.
There you go.
That's another thing that could work.
Yeah, because Penguin has operated in different capacities. He's not always been an antagonist of Batman. You know, he's actually even facilitated the Suicide Squad. He has facilitated many different things where you have to go through an underground pathway, an illegitimate pathway, and the Penguin can provide that for you. So it's interesting how Batman sometimes makes league with these criminals, you know, and sometimes you know he does. He sometimes look he lays with Catwoman, and Catwoman lazes with criminals. Okay, sometimes she's on their side, sometimes she's on Batman's side, sometimes she's on the law side, sometimes she's not on. Right? Then he lays with the Penguin once. He even had to work with the Lex Luthor once. He had to work with the Joker once, depending on which iteration of story you're looking at. So Batman forms leagues, convenient leagues with people to get the results that he needs, right? So I wouldn't be surprised that, you know, the Penguin in this film noir, he's playing both sides. You know, as much as they call him the main villain of the movie, he may not be the guy, the person, the perpetrator of whatever the criminal activity is. He may just be a villain, but it's kind of both sides. He kind of works both sides of the aisle. Let's put it that way, for leverage, for his benefit. So it could be possibly that. I would love to see what they have for the Batman, because the guy who's the director, he's really directed some really high quality movies of late. Some have hit, some have missed, but he's directed some really good movies of late. And the psyche that he's talking about is the psyche of Batman and Caesar, and how they have some things in common. So I would be, you know, and if it's a detective drama, you can't really tell who's the main villain. You know, who's the no.
You know, actually, now that I mentioned it, the Broken City story, it's actually a kind of a film noir story.
There you go.
The story in it is something like it starts with a woman who has been found dead.
Right.
And Batman is looking for the killer, who is suspected to be the woman's brother. And when looking for the brother, he comes across the brother's lover, a woman who will come back later. After a film noir's confrontation with her, they come. She tells about they talk. He follows her her to the brother, and then when the brother flees, he hears two gunshots in the alley. He's following, and then we come to we come again.
Oh.
Okay, so he feels gunshots and comes across a family, parents dead, child left alone, and then and the story he's extra motivated now to find the alleged killer, the brother who had killed his sister and who most likely killed that kid's parents as well. That's what drives Batman through the story. That's where it is, and there's a twist at the end when he finds the brother and and learns about the circumstances of what happened there. It's
see, that's the kind of stuff that I like.
Look it up.
I like those kinds of stories, you know. So that's what I think about. That's my opinion. It's not one in which I specifically can say yes or no to the Penguin as the main villain for Batman. It would be really how the director goes about portraying this main villain, if he's the main villain, and really how does this movie end up, and what journey does Batman go through in the whole movie. So there's a lot of different things going on. William Muir said he got to go. Peace out to my fellow DC fans. Shout out to you, William Muir. And I see that's about it for questions right now. We went through about 2 hours, R2. We've been talking for 2 hours, so this is really cool. I'll invite more of you guys to the Hangout next time, so most of you guys can put your input, whether it's Andreas Rivera, Dave Ethan, Aishan, Saxena. Thanks for coming to the group, Aishan. First time I've seen you in this group. Dave Ethan gone as well, William. And we got R2 and Robert Directo. All of you, man, made it a very fun time. We're going to talk some more about the DCEU as time goes along. I'm trying to share some more material with you guys tomorrow, as well as just remembering that the battle usually happens inside of your head, inside of your mind. You can be your worst enemy. You can also be your best ally. So on that note, I just want to say to everybody, have a good evening. R2, you want to leave a last word before you finish?
Yeah, I finally killed that revenant.
Good luck with God of War, man. Enjoy yourself. Peace to you. I got to get out of here. So have a good one. All right, man.